Hello, mighty companions. This is Earl Purdy, and I'm here to do lesson 328, which is I choose the second place to gain the first. I choose the second place to gain the first. I choose the second place to gain the first. I choose the second place to gain the first. I choose the second place to gain the first. You choose the second place to gain the first place. You choose the second place to gain the first place. You choose the second place to gain the first place. You choose the second place to gain the first place. You choose the second place to gain the first. What seems to be the second place is first. What seems to be the second place is first. For all things we perceive are upside down. All things we perceive are upside down. Until we listen to the voice of God, all things we perceive are upside down. Until we listen to the voice of God, all things we see are upside down. It seems that we will gain autonomy. It seems that we will gain autonomy, but by our striving to be separate, it seems that we will gain autonomy, and that our independence from the rest of God's creation is the way in which salvation is attained. We think our independence from the rest of God's creation is the way in which happiness is obtained. Yet all we find is separation. All we find is sickness. All we find is suffering. All we find is loss and death. Sickness, suffering, and loss and death. This is not what our Father wills for us. Our Father doesn't will. Our Father, our Creator, doesn't will sickness, suffering, and loss and death. Sickness and suffering and loss and death is not what our Father wills for us, nor is there any second to God's will. Nor is there any second to God's will. Yeah. To join with God is but to find our own will. Is to join with God is to find our own will. Is to join with love is to find our own will. To join with truth is to find our own will. And since our will is God's will, and since our will is God's will, it is to God that we must go to recognize our will. It is to God you must go to recognize what you really want. It is to God. It is to God that you must go to recognize your will. It is to God you go. It is to God you go to recognize your will. It is to God you go. There is no will but yours, God. There is no will but yours. And I am glad that nothing I am glad that nothing I imagine contradicts what you would have me be. I'm glad that nothing that I can imagine can contradict what you would have me be, God. It is your will. It is your will that I be wholly safe, eternally at peace, wholly safe. It is God's will. It is God's will that you be wholly safe and eternally at peace. I say, it is God's will that you be wholly safe and eternally at peace. And happily you share that will which God, your Creator, gave as part of you. And happily you share that will which God, your Creator, gave as part of you. And happily I share God's will which God, my Creator, gave to me. I choose the second place to gain the first. I choose the second place. I choose the second place. I choose the second place to gain the first. I choose the second place to gain the first. You choose the second place to gain the first. You choose the second place to gain the first. You choose the second place to gain the first. You choose the second place to gain the first. You choose the second place to gain the first. You choose the second place to gain the first. To choose the second place, you gain the first. To choose the second place, I gain. I choose. I choose the second place to gain the first place. This is Earl Raj Purdy. Check me out at www.earlpurdy.com and check out my classes, audio classes, and video classes on my website. Let peace extend from my mind and my heart to yours. Yeah. Hello, mighty companions. We're going to cover the theme for our workbook lessons right now, which is, what is creation? What is creation? What is creation? The Course says creation is extension. So what is creation means what is extension. What is creation means what is extension. So I want you to hear this with me right now. Just hear this with me right now. Creation is the sum of all God's thoughts, in number infinite, and everywhere without all limit. Creation is the sum of all God's thoughts. Only love creates and only like itself. Only love creates and only like itself. Listen to me now. There was no time when all that love created was not there. Nor would there be a time when anything that love created suffers any loss. Forever and forever are God's thoughts exactly as they were, as they are, unchanged throughout time and after time is done. Forever and forever are God's thoughts exactly as they were. God's thoughts are given all the power that their own creator has, for God would add to love by love's extension. Thus, God's creation, God's son, you, shares in creation. So you must therefore share in the power to create. You must therefore share in the power to create. What God has willed to be forever one will still be one when time is over. What God has willed to be forever one will still be one when time is over, and will not be changed throughout the course of time, remaining as it was before the thought of time began. In other words, creation is the opposite of all illusions. Creation is the opposite of all false ideas, for creation is the truth. Creation is the truth. Creation is the Holy Son of God. For in creation is God's will complete in every aspect. In creation is God's will complete in every aspect, making every part container of the whole. Creation's oneness is forever guaranteed, inviolate. That means creation's oneness is forever held within God's holy will. That means beyond all possibility of harm, beyond all possibility of separation, beyond all possibility of imperfection, and of any spot upon his sinlessness. We are one creation. We are the sons of God. We are one creation. We are the children of God. We are one creation. We are the children of God. We seem to be discreet and unaware of our eternal unity with God. We seem to be unaware of our eternal unity with God. Yet, back of all our doubts, past all our fears, there still is certainty. Back of all our doubts and past all our fears, there still is certainty. But love remains with all love's thoughts, love's sureness being theirs. Love remains with all love's thoughts. God's memory is in our holy minds. God's memory is in our innocent minds. God's memory is in our innocent minds, which know their oneness and their unity with their Creator. Your holy mind knows its oneness, and its unity with its Creator. Let our function be only to let this memory return. Let our function be only to let this memory return. Only to let God's will be done on earth. Let's let God's will be done on earth. You let God's will be done on earth. Only to be restored to sanity, only to be restored to sanity, and to be but as God created us. Our Father calls to us, our Father calls to us, our Creator calls to us, our Creator calls to our Creator calls to us, our Creator calls to us. We hear our Creator's voice and forgive creation in the name of creation's Creator. We forgive creation, we forgive creation. We forgive creation in the name of its Creator. We forgive creation, holiness itself, innocence itself. Whose innocence, whose holiness, God's own creation shares. We share God's innocence, God's holiness. We share God's creation, all the qualities of God's creation, whose innocence and holiness is still part of us. I say, what is creation? What is creation? Creation is the sum of all God's thoughts. Creation is the sum of all God's thoughts. The sum of all God's thoughts is creation. What is creation? What would it take for you to recognize what creation is in ways beyond your wildest imagination through the Holy Spirit within you? So ask this question right now. So ask this question, live in the question. Go, what is creation? What is creation? What is extension? What is extension means what is creation? What is creation? So take that thought. It's the sum of all the thoughts of love. That's creation. Go ahead. Yeah.